Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of CR Exposed. On today's episode we are looking at the Tree Blight from the Monster Manual 2025 edition. So without wasting any more time, let's see if we can dig up the roots on this huge plant. Alright, so first of all we are going to start from the top and work our way down. Since this is just a basic plant without any spellcasting, this is going to be pretty quick. So we start with 15 AC, we just dump that right in. This is a huge plant, so we need to update the size just for the fact of the dice being updated to the correct D version, the dice version. In this case, we have 10D12 dice. We'll go ahead and throw those 10 dice in there to get ourselves a base of 65 hit points right now without our Constitution modifier. With that, we will go ahead and, well, now that we know we're looking for a CR7, we'll go ahead and throw that in as well for the expected CR because we need that for special stat modification reasonings, which is part of the rules and part of the tool. From there, we will then move on to our stats. We have a 23 strength, so this is a pretty strong tree. Just tear up some roots and smack you around with them, apparently. Dexterity is a 10. Obviously, it's a tree. It shouldn't be moving that fast, although it does have a AC 15, and we'll go back to that in a minute like I had done with the previous monster. From last week. We have a Constitution of 20, Hardy Boy, which is going to give us our 115 hit points as we see up here. The tool is matching that, so that's good to see. Intelligence is a 6, not very smart, so it's not going to be the most tactful plant around for tacticians or tactician plant, however you want to say that. Then we have a Wisdom of 10, average Wisdom, and a Charisma of 3. So not the prettiest or most well-spoken tree around. For that fact, it can only understand Common and Druidic, but can't speak, so clearly this tree does not have good looks going for it. It's maybe not like a cherry blossom tree or a weeping willow. Maybe it's something more gnarled and, I mean, considering it's neutral evil, just put 2 and 2 together. Now that we have our stats, we could look at the features area. Currently, it is immune to the deafened condition, which is kind of funny. But also, wait, I mean, if it's immune to the deafened condition, but it can understand Common and Druidic, what's going on with this Tree Blight here? Anyways, let's move on. Again, we have our senses of blind sight, which makes sense. You know, our tree can't see beyond 60 feet, and has a passive perception of 10. Moving on, we have our actions. Very quick monster this week. Our actions are a multi-attack of 2 branch attacks, and it's grasping roots, and we also have a bonus action of Gnash. So let's go ahead and take a look at our actions first, and then we'll get into that bonus action afterwards. We have 2 branch attacks. The branch has a 2-hit of 9, which is coming from our strength, as we can see here in the 2-hit and DC column of our monster stats. We'll go ahead and drop that in because, well, let's take a look here real quick before we drop that in, because we have 3 items here. We have 2 attacks with +9, so that's 2 9s, and we have a DC 17. So let's compare these. So we'll find DC 17 here. Its only column is within the CR 11, so a DC 17 is equivalent to a CR 11, and then we have a attack bonus of 9. We have 2 9s and we have a 17. The 17 is equivalent to an 8, so in this instance, we have 2 9s and an 8. We'll just round up to a 9 for our attack bonus. From there, we will go ahead and throw in our dice. So we're looking at 3d6 for the branch attack, which is bludgeoning damage. Bludgeoning in this particular sense doesn't really matter. We just need the dice, and that's going to be 3 there, plus the strength bonus to give us 16.5 damage. Now that half damage is actually going to be quite important because we are doing 2 of those attacks, which will then turn our branch attacks from 32 to actually 33 points of damage. So moving on, we have the Grasping Roots. This is your strength saving throw with a DC 17. One creature, large or smaller, the blade can see within 15 feet, can then be grasped. So we have a 15-foot range on the grasping area. The target is pulled up to 10 feet straight towards the blight, kind of like our ropers, and then the creature is grappled. So since we have a grappled condition here, and it looks like, how many of this can we do? The grappled condition from 1 of 6 roots until the grapple ends. The target takes 13 bludgeoning damage at the start of each of its turns. So not only are we doing damage, but we also have grappled, and we can have up to 6. Now, when we have something here, especially similar to the roper, I like to take minimum, actually maximum 2. At minimum, we would say 1, depending on factors of the attack, but since this grasping root has up to 6, and in theory, we shouldn't have 6 players because God, all along it will take 45 minutes for your player to have another round. Keep your groups to 3 to 5. We'll easily say that at any given time, this Tree Blight here will have upwards of 2 grappled. So, you could grapple a third, and then as that round or that turn, that round ends, one of them breaks free, and then you still have 2. Two is a safe bet here, and more than likely this is what our developers decided when calculating this monster. So we're going to go ahead and throw in the grappled condition, and since it lasts, how long does this last again? Until it's grappled until the grapple ends. So in any event, we will go ahead and say, now grappled is usually for one target, like constrict with the constrictor snake here. So since we can grapple upwards of 6, I'm just going to at minimum or maximum say 2. So down here in this section, I'm going to add in 2 extra AC because we are going to have 2 targets grappled. On top of that, we are also dealing 2d6 plus 6 bludgeoning damage each round as well. So we'll go ahead and update that. And we have 13 damage from the grasping roots. So we will have this as well. And then we will do our multi-attack. So our multi-attack is going to be the first attack times 2 plus an additional 13 for a total of 46 points of damage. Now that is great. This is our attack action, but we also have the bonus action to deal with. That is the Gnash ability here. This is another DC saving throw, Dex saving throw this time for Gnash. One grappled creature grappled by the blight takes a bunch of piercing damage, 3d8. So we're going to have to set up another set of dice for that, or half as much on a success. So when it comes to these types of attacks here, we always take 2 failed saves worth of damage. In theory, you could also say 4 passed because it's half damage, or a combination of 2 passes and 1 fail. It all works out. It's just easier to do 2 full rounds of damage because in theory, then we have 2 failed saves. So we're going to once again have 3d8, and we're adding in the strength modifier, and that will be our Gnash attack. Now on top of that, we're also going to add in to our multi-attack the bonus action because there's no limit to it. We are expecting to always have 2 players grappled, or 2 targets at least grappled at any given time. So we will go ahead and throw in that as well. And actually, because we're expecting to have 2 grappled targets, I also actually need to multiply the 13 times 2 as well. So let's go ahead and modify that real quick. So we'll say times 2. So we have 2 branch attacks. We're going to have upwards of 2 grasping roots. Now, in theory, we're only going to have 1 for the first round of combat, and then we'll have 2 after that. So we can just technically round up. It would be 1 on the first round, and then 2, 2, 2, 2, continuing on. So it's something like, I don't know, it's like 1.8 or something like that for the actual technical correct damage, but this just makes it a little simpler. Our damage might be ever so slightly off, but it's not going to affect it that much. We'll see what happens. If it's hugely outweighed by the 7, we'll go from there. But anyways, let's take a look at this before fixing the rounds of combat, and we'll just throw this into concentration. So, because I'm throwing it into concentration, we're doing this every round of combat and saving myself the time. At the moment, we are looking at a CR9. Okay, so because of this, let's go ahead and work this out properly then. So what we'll do here is, instead of the multi-attack, we'll do another multi-attack like this. We'll do this times 2, plus 1 grasping roots and 1 Gnash, because we will in theory have the target grasped as well. So we have a 65 there. So round 1, we have the 65.5, and then for rounds 2 and 3, we have the 78. This is probably not going to be that bigger. Yeah, it's not that far off. We're looking at an ever so slightly stronger monster here. What we can then say is, to probably fix this, we could say only 1 target grasped at any given time. And if that's the case, we need to modify this to 1 extra AC, and then we need to modify all of these to be the one gnashing roots attack here, and the one grasping roots and the 1 Gnash. If that's the case, we throw in 65 for every round of combat, and we still have ourselves a CR8. So this means that our attacks are a little too strong. So let's revert back to the proper way of doing things with 2 targets grappled at any given time, because that's more likely to be the proper case here. And we'll adjust our dice from there. At the moment, we are looking at 74 points of damage. That's reflected in the challenge rating green section up here for the average DPR. And we need to bring that 74 down to a probably between 63 and 68 points of damage. So what do we do here? Let's bring the Nash down from 3d8 to 2d8 instead and see how that switches things. Well, that didn't do really anything. So we'll go ahead and pop that back up. Actually, let's see. We'll go back to 2 and we'll switch this back to a D6 as well. That shifts it down ever so slightly. I think the biggest thing here is probably going to be the bonus action attack. I mean, if we can reduce the strength ever so slightly from a 23 to a 20, that would also probably fix some things. So let's revert the dice here. We'll leave those as is, and instead of modifying the dice, we'll just modify the strength of our Tree Blight. So instead of that, we will go ahead and say 20 or 21 to give us an 8 to hit. And if we look at our dice, those also do ever so slightly modify. And then we will bring the 2 hit down to an 8. And that still doesn't do anything. So this gets to be a little tricky. The biggest thing here we can say is just use it as a CR8 instead. The one more thing we can do here, now that we've modified all this, is just say, let's go back to the 1 target at any given time with the grasping roots. We'll switch that, and then we also need to switch the AC to 1 because we only have 1 grappled. And now we have a CR7 technically. We need to add in just a little bit more damage to this because technically we're at a 6.5 for our Tree Blight, and I'd prefer the damage here in our offensive CR to be just ever so slightly higher. So what if we change the grasping roots to, what if we do a 3 here? Let's say the grasping roots are, instead of a 2d6 for bludgeoning damage every round, a 3d6. That's better. This is the long way to make this Tree Blight balanced. We'd have to drop the strength from a 23 to either a 20 or 21. Doesn't matter. We're looking more for the modifier. That reduces the overall damage that the Tree Blight is doing for all of its attacks, as well as reducing the 2 hit from an 8 to a 9. And then that should also change the DC technically. We could probably say DC 16, which would be more in line with the offensive rating. And then from there, we just need to increase the grasping roots damage from 2d6 to 3d6. So we fixed this one. It's a little off the wall. And at CR7, you know, our players are expected to be probably around the level 4 range or so. And that's going to easily make work of this. If this was a boss, you know, I would use this initially as like a boss blight, and then have some of the needle blights or the other types of blights as minions to work with this. So this could be the final encounter for a particular scenario here, which, you know, I'm kind of working out maybe a venture. Maybe this will be an adventure for my overpowered CRs. Maybe I'll make a real quick little quest there to help out or something. Be on the lookout for that. You know, maybe that's another good reason. On top of the subclasses and classes that you get as an overpowered CR member or Patreon, you could also potentially get adventures from me as well. Who knows? I love this stuff. So expect to see more of this in the future. If you were ever thinking of joining the memberships here on YouTube or Patreon, consider that. Maybe there's a good reason to join up, because I've got a lot of stuff here that I'm willing to share with my supporters. Or you could potentially buy it off my coffee shop as well. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Want to see even more? Join the community on Patreon or YouTube memberships and get early access to my videos, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and a say in what monsters I review next. Click the link in the description to get started.